Albert Awol, the voice of the jungle, broadcasting on the DVC to all points unknown. If you're within the sound of my voice, you're listening to Welcome Home Podcast on the DVC.
Hello and welcome home. Thank you for joining us on episode 221 of Welcome Home, a Disney Parks and Vacation Club podcast. I'm Tom. I'm here with Trevor and Damon. How's it going, guys?
Hey, going good.
Yeah.
So I have three things.
Oh gosh.
So I played pickleball.
I thought you were done with pickleball. What happened? So
I had one of the people that listens to the show that I'm friends with. You know, we were trying to figure out what we were doing. We decided to play pickleball with our son, so we did that. I realized the nice thing about pickleball is, though, like you can go, like I was like, oh, we got to get there early because there's going to be a ton of people, which there was, because it's the same court that, what is that, the Holdernesses? You know who I'm talking about? Those people that sing, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Wait, they live up by you? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they use that court to film at sometimes.
Oh, okay.
No idea what you're talking about. But
well, you can look it up. They're super famous.
They're like
actually.
a family that does like songs and stuff, right? Is that the one?
But if you look it up, if you look it up, you'll probably know who they are. But anyway,
they're not Canada famous, so
they might not be Canada famous, but you still might know who they are. So we decided to go early because I figured it was going to be packed, and then it was packed, of course. And then I realized, like, with pickleball, it doesn't even matter. If you have 4 people, you're ambivalent to the rest of the people there. Like, you put your paddles up, you play your game with your 4 people. Again, it's that stupid, it doesn't matter if you win or lose rule. You're never playing with anyone else. So it almost is irrelevant.
People, right?
It's almost irrelevant as how many people are there. It's just a matter of how long do you have to wait to get back on until after your game is over. So we did that. That was actually fine. I finally got around to watching the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which is on Paramount.
Was it good? I heard it was good.
It's not.
Really? I heard it was good.
No, I don't know where you heard that from, because most people say it's not good. I don't think it got great reviews
got great
either.
Reviews, though, if I remember.
I think we hoped it was good.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. We hoped it was good. But, it kind of led me to an interesting place. Why is there not a D&D park somewhere? Like, gosh, would that be the best? Like, why?
I mean, like the 1980s opening?
No. Yeah, wouldn't that be funny? No. Not that sort of park. But, like, what if, like, the IP was bought by Disney? Like, what would that mean? Like, how cool would that be to have a D&D section of the park, kind of like Star Wars? There's just so much rich history there. And there's so many stories to pull from. I mean, even more than Star Wars by, like, 1,000-fold, right? That have already been written. So it would be super cool. Like, I could imagine the Avatar and Underdark. Anyway, it was just a thought, and I kind of was, wow, I wish somebody would really do that. Maybe if Universal gets rid of, all their Marvel stuff, they can pick that up, or maybe Disney could pick it up. But anyway, I thought that.
I just want to say it has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 93% audience score.
Yeah, it is not good.
So you're in the second.
And I don't agree with Rotten Tomatoes anymore. Like, I usually
look at the audience score. I look at the audience score more than the critic score,
Yeah, I don't know if I feel that. I'll leave the general audience alone. I'd rather see real reviews by reviewers. And here's the third thing. So I'm pretty much at this point done with the group and done with Discord. I've gotten to the point where I realize that, listen, everyone wants to chime in on what they think that we need to do or what we should be doing. I was having fun with this point thing. I thought it was, fun and interesting. And everyone has a comment about it. Like, I'm just done. So take that with what you will. I am, more than happy to see the people that I plan to see when I go down to Disney this time, but I'm out for a while. I'm done. People think that this is easy, that, the 3 of us, it becomes easy. It's not. And when you do something, you're in control of it. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay.
That is totally fair, man. I get your sentiment, and yeah, I kind of stayed out of the whole points thing because
it was just fun. But
yeah, I know
it was silly. Yeah,
it was just silly and fun.
It was, yeah.
And then people take things way too out of control. I'm done. Like, I have better things to do in my life. Like, if I'm going to spend time, it's going to be for enjoyment. So take that as what you will.
It is interesting what you're saying, though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Trevor.
I was just going to say, I understand. Like you had that very competitive, not competitive thing going on. Like you were framing it as very like you were being
but fun, competitive.
Yes, exactly. And I get that because I do the same thing with my friends all the time. We'll start competitions, and it's not because anyone's actually like wanting to win. I mean, we have like weird moments where it's like you do crazy stuff to try and win, but it's overall, it's like when whatever shakes out. Yep. So I get it. Like it's unfortunate that it wasn't.
I guess you kind of forget, like you kind of put yourself out there, and again, like these people, I don't know these people, right? In general, and you kind of have these expectations based around like kind of how your friend group goes, and it's not really like that. I'm just, I have better things to do than, you know what I mean, to deal with that. So I'm just done for a while. Not to say I'll never be back, but I'm done for a little bit.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, I will say the points thing has gotten a lot more engagement on the group of people.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's kind of the whole point. Like, people are going to complain about engagement. Like, it's our world, right? Like, how are you going to complain about engagement? And if that's what we want to do, listen, you got options, right? Like, you got options, man. Well, so I can't. Listen, I have better things to do in my life than deal with that. So,
well, and to your point, Damon, like you just before the show, we were talking about like one particular topic. Do we want to talk about it or not? And I said something to the effect of, I feel like we have to talk about it. And you're like, we don't have to talk about anything. And sometimes I forget it's our show that we can do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's.
But I guess the other thing is too, I want to make sure, because with these, Tom's going to be away, so we're going to be doing 2 wait lists, which is going to be fine. It'll be fun. Then I'm going to be going away, so I'll be at Disney. So I just kind of want to talk, I guess, a little bit about what I'm doing.
So this is like your last full episode for like a month, basically.
yeah, crazy, right? So it looks like I'm going to be going to Gaylord Palms for 2 days. We picked there because of that little, like, they have their own water park-ish. Like, I'm going to say ish because it is really not like a huge water park, but it's pretty cool. They have a few slides. When we were there last, must have been, 5-6 years ago, I think they had 2. And now they have, I think they just put together some sort of cool lazy river as well. It looks kind of neat.
I always like a lazy river.
I do love a lazy river. And I think they also have a lap, not really a lap pool, but a pool you could swim laps in, which is always helpful for us. Otherwise we have to go over to International Drive to the big pool for my son to swim. But yeah, so we're going to go to Gaylord Palms for 2 days. Excuse me. Gaylord Palms for 2 days, stay there, and then go over to Saratoga. We're going to try to hit City Walk, I think, at Universal one of the days we're doing nothing. And then we're going to, I think on the 13th, we're going to try to meet some people from the show at Disney Springs. And then the 14th.
Some listeners? You're going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the 14th, we are going to go to Epcot for Flower and Garden. Nice. Which I hope there's still the butterfly thing. Oh, yeah. And then we're coming
butterfly
home.
Thing going on, man.
Yeah, I hope so. So and then we're going to come home. So it'll be 1 day in the park. We're going to kind of just take it as we go. You know what I mean? Like kind of roll around, go to Disney Springs, go to Universal. May look for some mini golf on a day that we kind of have nothing going on. Okay. So it will be an interesting trip, and we're staying at the tree houses. So
I'm excited to hear how the tree, because you never stayed there before, right?
No, we haven't.
I feel like you've talked about it.
We wanted to. And I think this was kind of the year to do it, because why not, right? We're going to kind of blow our points, because there's only 5 of us going, which is, for the tree houses, it's a little bit of overkill, but we had the points, and I don't see us necessarily running back next year, because honestly, if the whole Universal thing does pan out with Epic Universe, that's where we're going. And we're going on that cruise. I mean, that's where we're going next year. Yeah. I don't see us. So I'm getting back to like, hey, I would love to stay at, the larger, nicer places, even if it meant going every 2 years for a trip, at least for a little while. I mean, with the kids in college, man, things get tough. Get tough. So that may be, again, something that we do, which is using all of our points every other year for one of the larger rooms. Because now, again, remember, we don't need to stay at Hilton Head anymore since my wife's family built their house. We're actually going to be there over Memorial Day. So.
Yeah. So to your point, Damon, like I'm kind of doing the same thing, right? I mean, not purposely though. We're just too busy this year. But we're going to have so many points next year that we're going to end up doing a Grand Villa somewhere, which we've always wanted to do. But like, it just so happens we're going to have enough points because we're not doing anything this year. So
absolutely. And again, why not at the end of the day, right? Why not have that little extra room? I think you get used to it as well.
Oh, definitely. Right? You get spoiled on the bigger rooms.
You definitely get spoiled.
That's the dangerous part.
That is,
and I think once you start having like people like even one bathroom is just a disaster with 5 people, just in general, even on a vacation. But even some of the twos, it's nice to have a little bit of a spot to kind of chill. And because we are doing a 1-day park trip only, we're going to need kind of that time to hang out. Now, I don't know. I think we'll try to do Guardians. Like, so what is the situation with Guardians? Is it still that lottery thing going on?
Yeah, you can do virtual queue or you can buy.
Okay.
Either way.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier to get in the virtual queue now just because, the initial crowd has calmed down. So I think you could probably get into the queue.
Well, yeah, we'll kind of see. And then I think, like I said, the eating part, but, I told you guys the last time we have this problem of
the kids want to sit down and eat.
They want to sit down and eat. So I don't know how this will work again. And my guess is what will end up happening is that we do Epcot, like, we get up, we go, we kind of do our thing. I think we might even, if we do Guardians, maybe we'll just buy into, Lightning Lane again, just so we don't have to think about it. But they want to do Test Track. So I got to make sure we get on Test Track too somehow. So we'll figure that all out. But, we'll probably come back around, 6, something like that. And I don't know what time the park's open to, but my guess is my boys either stay or go back.
It's usually 9 or 11, depending on.
Yeah. So they'll probably go back. I don't think that will be what I do, but I think that they'll go back. And then we're leaving the next day. It's funny. We have all these discussions about how, kind of how the vacation works and what you want to do. And I'm one of those people where, like, if you were to come back, let's say we came back from Disney at 10 o'clock at night, right? That's fine. I can go to sleep and, get up and leave the next morning. I'm fine with that. But if we came back, let's say our last day we had nothing to do. We kind of had to switch our Epcot plans because of this. So let's just say we're leaving the 15th in the morning. Let's just say we went to Epcot on the 13th, which was the original plan. And then we're going to like just do nothing on the 14th, but leave the 15th. Dude, I want to leave. Like when I'm done with vacation, like I'm done.
You're ready to get home.
I'm ready to
get
go
home.
Yeah. So I have this tough thing. So I had to actually move Epcot to the 14th to kind of alleviate that like vacations over anxiety so that I didn't have to like worry about rushing home. Cause again, if we go to Epcot, I'll be exhausted if we're at Epcot all day. So I'll go to sleep, get up, and then, I'll probably be ready to go at 5 a.m. where the rest of them will probably be ready more like 10. But I felt like that's something I have to do on my vacations at least. So.
Damon, on the 14th, you're actually, or the 15th, right? You said you're going the 15th?
No, going the 14th, leaving on the 4th. Leaving.
Oh, okay. Wow, so you're leaving in the middle of the week?
Yeah, interestingly enough,
That's
right?
so weird.
It's not a bad thing.
No, I was going to say, so Epcot was open until 9, but it has one of those after hours events, one of the paid after hours.
On what? On the 15th?
On the 15th, yeah. On the 15th.
Oh, yeah. No, we're going to be on the 14th. It is weird, but what's happened is that we tried to incorporate the weekend, and because we're doing the tree houses, I was like, I'm not trying to stay a week. A full week. So that's why I did Gaylord for the 10th, 11th. We're really only at the tree houses 12th, 13th, 14th.
Okay.
And then leaving the 15th. Because it's still the tree houses. It's still a bunch more points than regular, right? And we were kind of like, if we're not doing park trips, why do I need to be there the whole week? What else am I doing?
Yeah, I get that.
You can only do so much. Like, and listen, it's nice to hang out and do, like I said, my wife's about like this kind of do nothing relaxing, which is why we have 2 days of that. But a week of that at Disney can still be pricey, even with no park tickets.
Yeah.
Your points are worth something at the end of the day.
So your park hours are 9 to 9 at Epcot that day.
Okay. That'll be a long day. Yeah. So my guess is we come back at 6 and they stay till 9. That's just my personal take.
Well, and you can get in at 8:30 with early entry. So if you want to,
I don't know if I could do 12 hours.
If you could do 8:30 though, you could rope drop Test Track, and that solves your Test Track problem.
Whew, yeah, we'll have to see. That actually might not be a bad idea. They might be up for rope dropping if they really aren't doing anything the days before that. Yeah. So we'll kind of just make that our day of like, hey, we're going all in. So
get it done, and then you can take a break midday and then figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I mean, for me, I'm disappointed that there's, the Moana thing is what I'm looking forward to as kind of the next thing. But dude, like, what is coming to Disney? Like, what do we have coming? The Moana thing, and what else? Or a redesign
not
of
a whole
Splash
lot right
Mountain.
now. I mean, they're gonna, hopefully announce stuff, but
right now we really have that, and then the redesign of Splash Mountain, right? What else is really on the
pretty
agenda?
much it for the time being? Yeah.
That's it's a weird cycle. Trevor, do you think that they're going to wait until more comes out about Epic Universe before they release information, or what?
I actually don't think Epic Universe has anything to do with it. I think what we're seeing is kind of people don't realize this, but when it comes to like planning or new stuff, like when big events like COVID happened, there is like a delayed reaction on things. And I think what we're seeing right now is that, they had a bunch of stuff in the hopper up until COVID, and then it was like things completely dropped off, and it was waiting for them to, finish up their existing projects. I think what's happened now is that they've spent all their time finishing up their existing projects, and they're kind of resetting and figuring out what's next. But the problem is that usually they have, they're pretty good at the cadence of, they're announcing stuff and things are in the works and they're already in the back end figuring out the next thing. Right.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunately bad timing for them.
Yeah.
With Nintendo Land and Epic Universe coming, their lull, unfortunately, just is going to kind of overlap this non-lull at Universal, which is kind of weird. But
maybe
I don't think it's a bad thing.
Maybe they're trying not to compete with that. They just
I think it's good for them to just let Epic Universe happen because they don't have to compete quite as hard. They can let that build up and the hype die down on that, and then they can do the next thing because it's easier that way instead of them having to spend a whole bunch more money competing directly.
And I just don't think they're going to compete for the same audience. So why bother?
It's different.
So we're gonna talk about this. So let's just kind of table the rest because we are going to talk about what should Disney be doing next as a wait list. That will be one of the wait lists. And what do we say the other wait list is?
Yeah, so the two wait lists we're going to do. So Disney has stated that they want to spend $17 billion over the next 10 years at Disney World. So we're going to speculate on what that could be for. What are they going to spend $17 billion on? So we're going to talk through that.
Recreation of Duckburg.
That's going to cost.
Let's wait list that.
Yeah. And then the other one is, and we're going to talk about this in a few. What are they going to do with the Starcruiser space, or what should they do with the space that Starcruiser is in? So those are the two wait lists we're going to do.
So stay tuned for those.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I love the reckless speculation on stuff. So and these are two, basically we're just speculating or coming up with our own ideas. So I'm excited to talk about those two things. Especially, I mean, like I said, the $17 billion thing. I mean, if you think about it, like over the quote Disney decade where they added a new park and all the new hotels and actually added 2 new parks. I mean, they probably didn't spend $17 billion over those 10 years. Now, given that was a while ago, right? That was the 90s.
Yeah,
but,
inflation
so
is a thing.
It's different. But at the same time, $17 billion is a lot of money, right? So if they've got that much penciled in for the next 10 years, I mean, that's going to be a lot of stuff. I mean, we'll get into it, though.
That's a lot of bubble wands.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, so we'll talk about that in the wait list, though. As tempting as it is to get into it here, we'll wait. So
yeah. So what we have one listener question for this week.
Yeah.
So so let's go through that, and then we can kind of touch on some of the news that we already alluded to. So so Nathan says, have you ever gone to Disney for business reasons? I've been fortunate enough to go to Walt Disney World to attend Disney's Approach to Leadership and Excellence 3-day course and InfoSec World. It's a cybersecurity conference for those of us that get to do that IT kind of stuff. So that's cool. I would love to go to InfoSec, but
I have to start this off by apologizing to Nathan.
Okay.
So I made a joke comment on one of his posts, and he said he posted I think this is the same Nathan. Where he posted a picture and he said, I'll give 10 points to the person that captions this the best. And I jokingly said, I'll give 10 Tom Nichols to if you delete this post. I was trying to, and I was making a reference to The Office from, I don't know if anybody watched The Office, but the Stanley Nichols thing. I was doing that joke, right? And then Nathan went and deleted his post and was like, dude, I was kidding. Like, don't delete the post. I was just joking. So I felt really bad.
Now you owe him 10 Tom nickels, though. So
yeah, I do. I owe him 10 Tom nickels. That's right. So, just, to the conversation about the points thing getting out of control. But but anyway, yeah, I'm sorry, Nathan. I think it's the same Nathan, but whichever Nathan it is out there, I apologize. I was kidding. Like, you didn't have to delete your post. So anyway. But I have not gone there for business reasons. I do not. The jobs I've had typically don't require, kind of conferences and stuff like that. We don't, my industry doesn't. I mean, there are some, but it's just nothing that I do that I would attend a conference. You know what I mean? Or for really, do one of those leadership courses. I don't think that my company would pay for something like that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. Like I've gone to a couple of conferences over the years that my company's paid for. And, depending on, the climate of I guess in IT specifically, it's like, companies will kind of look at if they have money, they'll send people to conferences. But then like right now we're kind of in a phase where it's they don't see the value in doing so. So, sure, yeah. So none of us get to go, unfortunately, even though, we do like going to those things. You get a chance to meet other people in the industry, and you learn about all kinds of cool things. In my opinion, if you like nerding out about IT stuff, I guess. But as far as going to Disney for a conference, there was a couple of years that I know Microsoft had their conferences down in Florida, and I tried to go. I tried to convince my company to let me go, and they wouldn't. So I've never gotten to go to Disney on a business trip. The closest I've had to a fun conference was we actually did a year. One of the conferences was in Vegas, and I know that sounds great, except that I actually don't gamble, so it wasn't as fun as it sounds. But it was still cool to be there for go to Vegas for a conference. But yeah, I would love to go to Florida for something like that, but I also know it would be hard because I would find reasons why I don't need to attend, some of the seminars and stuff because I've got an annual pass or something. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting, Trevor, because there was talk at my job for a while about me taking a trip out to LA, right? Because my company has some people out in LA, and I was like, if I live in LA, like there's no way I'm going out to LA and not taking a day and going to Disneyland. You know what I mean? Like I have to make that happen if I somehow were to get out there. I don't think it's going to happen now just because, it's like you were talking about, we're not really doing as much travel right now, but it's, if it happened, I mean, I would have to take a trip.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, absolutely. Anytime there's an opportunity like that, right? You take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. And Damon, I don't know if you have an answer. You've never been down. So for that. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So right. We have a piece of DVC news. So you might remember months ago, this is probably last year, right? Mm-hmm. That they first announced 2-factor authentication for Disney Vacation Club members. So they launched it, and then it didn't work, right? So
it had issues, yeah.
It had some issues, yeah. Which, if you're launching 2-factor authentication, you really don't want it to have issues. Doesn't exactly build confidence in the security of the website. So they're relaunching this now, but they're only using it for parts of the site, like loan information. So like some of the sensitive stuff.
I think that's way smarter way to kind of handle it, but it just they have to do something because I'm just now surprised at so many of the things that require, 2-factor authentication, which aren't even using their own authenticator, right? Like, but it's almost like everything. And I feel like, with so many people just being beat these days on, identity theft and things like that, which is people that I wouldn't have expected to be beat. Like they're telling me stories about how they were beat, right? Like it's bad now. It's bad because they're so good at it. Like now. So I feel like this is something that they have to do. They don't really have a choice, but I also think it's smart to only do it for certain parts of the website to make it a little bit easier if you just want to check things. So I like it. I almost feel like they should just tap on to Google at this point and just use their two-factor authenticator and call it a day. Because I feel like now, I have stuff in there that I keep forgetting about, but like my authenticator list is kind of big.
It's getting more and more common.
What's really interesting is that the Disney TV end is using the Google Authenticator for their stuff that they're doing. So it's kind of weird that they wouldn't, kind of tap into that. But they're two different areas at the company.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, I think the way that Disney's organized is that each division of the company has like their own CTO. So they do like their own, they seem to all do their own thing, which doesn't feel like it makes like a lot of sense. I agree with you, David. Like it feels like
they should at least be talking, instead of just doing their own thing.
But I think the other thing is when you start to think about the experience for other, for the people, and if you're going to do it anyway, like that's fine. And listen, I'm sure people have problems with Google Authenticator, but it's been around for so long. I'd rather have it as, a line item on my Google Authenticator rather than a whole new system setup. I mean, I know that they're probably not even going to use, they're going to do it via email or text or something like that, kind of like the bank does. Yeah. But it would be nice just to have it there, to be honest with you.
Have it as an option at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, give me as an option. That would be fine.
I kind of like the ones that do biometric for the two-factor auth.
Yeah.
That then you don't have to remember a code or anything like that. It's just scan your thumbprint. But yeah, that aside, you're right, Damon. It's good that they've approached this. I guess that they kind of dialed back instead of hitting everything. I get the feeling that they may have adjusted their approach, that you will eventually see it throughout the entire site.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, Trevor.
But it seems like they're kind of like testing sections first, or like working out all the bugs in a smaller subsection.
And I think that the loan section is not a bad thing, because in theory, most of your loan work, it shouldn't, I hope it isn't, but it shouldn't be an emergency issue, right?
Yeah.
It should be a checking, doing, have a little bit of time issue, hopefully, rather than something that's imperative that day. So that does make sense. Yeah, I'm fine with this. It has to happen. So it has to happen.
And it's a much smaller subset of the larger DVC, right? Like not everybody has loans. So, or loans through DVC, right? So yeah, it makes sense for them to kind of target that as I feel like they're using it as a pilot group for this rollout. Yeah. And then you'll probably see after a couple of months when, as long as they don't have any major breaking issues, then you'll see it eventually hit the rest of the site, which I agree with you that, it would be nice if they went with something a little more sophisticated, but at least even having, a text verification or email or whatever is still better than the nothing we have right now, which, if you kind of think about it, Disney's kind of leaving themselves hanging in the wind a little bit, that, people can, like, it doesn't seem like, as big of a deal, but people's points and stuff like that. If somebody figured out how to abuse that system, that could be very dangerous, right? Like,
if a scammer books a reservation, though, I'm going to know their name and everything. So,
yeah, but if an account gets compromised, and like, who knows, right? Like, people do all kinds of crazy stuff, and like, even
I'm sure there's some.
You think about, like, people saying, like even myself, being in IT and working with IT professionals for years, like Damon is, there was plenty of times where I was like, there's no way anybody I know will get caught by this thing, and then somebody gets caught, and you're like,
more than one person, you're kind of like,
wow. and you have to like really rethink and go, why did that happen? And then you realize, this is, they're getting way better at this than they realize.
And I'll tell you the truth, like, it's taken more time for me now because of all the double checking you almost have to do when you get a text or something. So this makes it nice where you don't necessarily have to worry so much. But I'll tell you, it must have been a few weeks ago, something came through that I was like, oh, and then I was like, wait a second, right? And it took me like a bit to figure out that, like, no, that really wasn't legit. And that was really good. Like, it was really good. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things these days. You got to really be careful. So it makes sense. I think that They had to do it. I think the way they're doing it is good. Thumbs up all around. Again, I would have liked to have rolled it in with the rest of my stuff, but if they can't and they want to have control over it, which they probably do, I get it. That's fine. It'll be fine.
Might be a feature.
An app would have been nice, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, I get the email or text, but gosh, an app would have been nice, especially just in case. You get what I'm saying? Like the just in case portion. Yeah.
Do you think they could actually authenticate through their own app? Because I know other, like, I use Steam as a game platform and like Discord and stuff. They have their own authenticators through. So like,
just rebrand me the Google one. Like that's really all I care about. I was surprised that like for my Synology, like they're using Google for their authentication to my own NAS that exists in my own house. So yeah, they could, but some companies just don't want to, right? They either want to use their own or they want to not use one, or hey, listen.
Yeah, I just wonder if Disney could like turn My Disney Experience or add a part of that to that is the authenticator to get into your account, right?
Yeah, just have like a push alert come through the app, and you approve it or disapprove.
Yeah, I think
biometrics.
I think the problem is that when you talk about just doing via text message, the email to me is too easily compromised as well. I think the text message one is kind of the best at this point if you really want to just high end. Because if you don't have your phone, hijacking a text message from a phone is way harder. Like email, like the person that I know, their email was compromised. So this is the problem they had there. So their Facebook was compromised, but their email was compromised. And then the hacker dude like put their email on their account and their phone number on their account. So there was almost no access. I almost think that email is, I don't love that because it's too easy to get somebody's email account.
Yeah.
Especially if you've hacked them.
Yeah. Even if you get an account compromised and you get it back, like you said, you actually have to check for like forwarding rules and stuff because like you said, they can still, even though you think you've got it, they're still getting things forwarded to them.
That's what was happening. It took me a while personally to fix it, but with your phone and just texting, like, gosh, that would be.
It's less because of the fact that SIM cards aren't spoofed as quickly as email.
And if they are, there's a lot more effort involved.
There is, yeah.
And if you really want my Disney account that bad, you can just come on vacation with me. Like, I'll let you come.
Come on vacation.
Come on vacation with me.
Just show up. You're fine.
Exactly. Yeah, just show. There's room in the tree houses. Come on.
All right. So we got the Starcruiser next. This was a big one.
This kind of surprising, but kind of not. I guess I figured it was going to last a little longer.
Yeah, so Walt Disney World is closing. The Starcruiser last voyage will be the 28th of September, concluding on the 30th. Now, what's weird about this is that it's also so very close that it's closing. So we won't discuss about what we think it should be, but we'll kind of discuss a little bit about,
what happened,
what we feel about. Yeah. So for me, again, and this was an interesting discussion because I had this as I'm playing pickleball as well. We were kind of talking about this specific topic, and, this person felt the same way as I did. Exactly, which was they would have loved to have done it, but they really would have loved if it was full on role play, kind of like what I had said, which I was surprised, right? But they felt this kind of the same way. Like, hey, if it was all in, I wouldn't have minded paying the money, but I don't. What did he say? Something about like, I don't want to see somebody showing up in, jeans and a t-shirt, right?
And a
like
Vader t-shirt. Like,
exactly.
Just like some
but
Star Wars.
I think the problem is it's definitely a FOMO, like, and I'm going to lose out on some checklists, right? I was at 0 for that last checklist, but now I'm going to be like a 1 if someone added in, wrote on the Starcruiser. I don't like missing out on things like this because when they come up at a later point. So while I wasn't rushing to go there at what I originally thought, especially because of the fact that there wasn't a full in, on this, I feel like I'm still upset that I won't have been on it at all. Yeah. And I don't think they gave us enough time. I think really what they should have done here is given us a year. I feel like would have been comfortable for the people that wanted to book. I think they would have been surprised at how many people were like, me and this other person kind of just weighing our options, but probably would have gone.
Well, because then you create some scarcity, right? Like, and already I've been seeing reports of that some of the last dates are getting sold out. I mean, like, so
absolutely,
because people are like, because now people are like, oh, I got to do it quickly, right? But I mean, there's nothing to stop them from reopening it at some point, right? Like, I mean, they could just 2 years from now, when the economic situation is different or something, they'd just be like, oh, let's reopen it.
You think that they're going to shutter this for a set amount of time?
No, I don't. I think
no, I don't either.
I don't. I'm just saying they could, right? Like, I don't think that they're going to shut it down.
Listen, we're going to delve too far.
Torn down.
Yeah, yes. We're going to delve too far into this. But what I'm going to tell you is that I feel like if they just made it special times where they did that, when they were fully booked, and you kind of did it like, they do kids sporting events, like, hey, if we don't have X amount of people, we're not running that weekend, right? And you just made it like that, then you can continue to run it and then use it as a secondary function on those times that it wasn't. I would be on board with that.
Yeah, I think the hard part is, and the part we're overlooking is that it's very heavy on cast members with very specialized roles,
and you're not getting that money back.
Yeah,
because you're paying those cast members. Listen, they got to be paying those cast members a fair chunk of change. And like you're saying, Trevor, there's so many of them, and there's still costume upkeep. There's so much money involved in it. And again, as I kind of said on the group, I feel like it's a line item, and they're looking at that going, well, how much did it make? That's not enough.
Yeah,
that's not even a tick mark.
Not worth it.
Yeah.
No.
I think the thing is Disney, like everything else, they gather metrics from it. They look at lessons learned and all that. And I think, this was an experiment, but I think, all of us were kind of looking at it as, a success. A success meant that it stayed open, or that, everybody loved it. And the thing is everybody did love it. It seemed that did it. Like, I didn't see a lot of negative around it.
No.
I think, Disney probably sees it as a success, but like you said, they were probably also looking and going, hey, we can't really feasibly keep running it longer than X. And
the thing is, I don't know if it was ever meant to be, because you have this story, and yes, you could have changed around the story somewhat. So do you think that they lost money on it?
I don't know if they lost money. I just don't know if it was enough, right? Like, to your point, Damon, right? Like, a lot of the cast members on the Starcruiser were actors. We're like, they're not regular cast members, right? And they had some regular cast members, the hotel operations and all that, and and all that. But this was a lot more of an expensive experience. It was all inclusive, right? You're talking about the food as well, right? It is part of this. And, there's a lot, even though it was expensive, I think their margins were probably still pretty thin. And especially because they only had 100 rooms. Well, like, it's so small, And
I think that was the problem, right? Everyone complained about the cost, but I almost think the cost had to be more to make it really what it was. But see, again, I think that if you had the cost and you up it to be more, then the problem is, for me, it had to be all-inclusive LARPing, or otherwise I just don't see it, because you really had to gear yourself to those hardcore people that's what they wanted, and maybe that they would pay that price. But again, if you're not doing it all the time, these people that are working it have to make a living.
Yep.
They can't be coming on, once every 3 weeks to do this show unless they're working somewhere else in the park. I mean, that's the only way you can make it happen. If you're going to put it as a limited experience, is have them somewhere else. And can you maintain that? I think that they're going away from that. So I don't know. It's disappointing, though.
Or it is. Alternately, they would need a ridiculously large pool of on-call people for this, which becomes a dice roll as to what you would get performance-wise, right? Because it is, like you said, it's acting and all that. So
they just can't get a Greedo that week,
or you get one that
goes
rogue on his script, right? Like,
I mean, that might make it interesting, though. But
but there was with only 100 rooms, you're talking. It's like it's a very set amount of revenue that you're going to get, right? So even if you're at 90% capacity, it costs the same pretty much all the time, right? So you're getting a certain amount. So unless you raise prices, you're just not going to make more money on it. And, they're probably paying the cast members more, right? Because all of the cast members, labor costs have gone up, right? So
I almost think that if you did this again, you would have had to make it bigger.
Yeah.
Right. More money, or have pitched it differently, right? Like, so that it wouldn't have been this weird limbo between casual and hardcore. It's in between there. It's this weird limbo. You either had to go super casual and just go hotel, right? Listen, we're delving into the wait list. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's move on before. I don't think we are, because we're talking about what happened to make it fail. The wait list is about what they should do with it in the future, right? Yeah, so you are talking a little bit about the future, but yeah.
So it's more of a should have, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Disney views this as a failure, though, right?
I don't think they do, because I think they gather. Listen, what at the end of the day, where's all the money? It's in data at this point, right? Sure. Data is where we're going to in general, and this brought data, so I don't think it's a failure. I think it brought them data.
I think too, though. So I posted an article here from Theme Park Insider, which I forget what that guy's name is. Was it Robert Niles? Yeah, Robert Niles. He's a pretty respected guy that writes about this stuff, and his read on it is I think pretty interesting, and I kind of agree with it. He said a Disney spokesperson called the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser a premium boutique experience, and that was the problem. Disney does not do boutique. With just 100 rooms available for booking, the Starcruiser represented less than 0.5% of Walt Disney World's on-site room inventory. Yes, booking costs thousands of dollars per person, but Disney likely spent far more money per visitor running the Galactic Starcruiser than any other property in its portfolio. Even if fully booked, the Starcruiser was just too small for a huge company like Disney to run as anything more than a vanity.
That's kind of what I was saying. Yeah.
And he says under Bob Iger's leadership, Disney strives for blockbusters, not boutique. I agree with this take. I think it makes total sense to me. Like, they're running this small margin, huge project, and it's like, that's not what they're trying to do anymore.
But you know what it brought them? It brought them some respectability to the Star Wars community, right? I think the marketing aspect of it, I think whatever they felt like, even if they did take a loss on it, in terms of marketing, dude, it's a win. Like, it was definitely a win in terms of marketing, like a lot of the stuff that Disney does, right? Maybe it's not about this, but it's about, just Star Wars in general.
Gains on it.
Yeah. Like, I think we're going to get into television a little bit later, right? But some of this even kind of crosses over to that, right? Into that whole, all the money they're spending on the other things in Star Wars. Well, gosh, this can just be, marketing for that. And then that's okay.
Yeah, and Robert also makes the point here too. The experience won some of Disney World's highest guest satisfaction ratings. Gosh, I can't talk. So it would seem obvious for Disney to apply elements from the Galactic Starcruiser experience to other theme park, hotel, or Disney Cruise Line experiences going forward. So absolutely. I do think that that's a big part of it. I think they learned a lot from this.
I would agree. And like I said, data's data, and that's always a good thing. I think the other problem with this is that it was almost a one and done.
Yeah.
Because, so you weren't changing. There wasn't anything changed. So I think it had to have come in with 3 storylines, randomly or something along those lines. But then the problem with that is if you got the one before, you know what I mean? Like, maybe they wouldn't be random. Maybe you could have booked.
They did have the choices thing into it.
I just don't know if it was enough, though.
Yeah. I think the problem with that is that, branching storylines, when they all come back together at the same conclusion, that's
you don't feel like anything was different.
Yeah, nothing really changed. It's just you went to the left instead of to the right, right? Yeah. So,
it's choose your own adventure book.
It is, yeah. Well, actually, no, it's worse
because you could die in there. Yeah,
because you could Choose Your Own Adventures literally had multiple endings to that.
But there was only really one good ending. I felt like
correct, but
I mean, come on, you guys would always look ahead to the page, right, and then go back if you died or something.
No,
right?
I would reread the beginning again, Tom, because that's what you're supposed to do. No, absolutely not.
Everyone thumbs ahead. No, you didn't do that.
Okay, I didn't thumb ahead, but I wouldn't go start from the beginning again.
Oh no, I wouldn't start from the beginning. I'm saying if there was a choice, I would hold my page, go to that other page, and be like, "Oh, I died. Okay, I'm going to go back and choose a different option." Yeah, I just always think of the Goosebumps books. That was a big one. Anyway, sorry.
yeah. That aside, yeah, it's like you said. I think we'll see a lot of things that will come of this. It won't be the next Starcruiser hotel, but like you were saying, or like was said in the article, is you'll probably start seeing in hotels, in the parks and stuff like that it's that's something like they did on the Starcruiser, right? Which, if it just all works towards bringing up the experience there and yeah, like you were saying, Damon, it's not always clear about, this thing in the moment may not look like the best thing, but if it benefits them, 5 years down the road, there's like an inherent benefit there that it's very hard to quantify.
It is,
right? And it's very hard for them to, and especially I have to do this with my job too sometimes, is, explaining to people that, hey, this is not going to help you immediately right now, but future you will thank you. Like that's hard to explain to people sometimes. So
it is. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. And I do think to your point, Damon, right? It was like, you either need to make it less expensive or more expensive, right? Like, because if you read a lot about like the articles of this, right? Like a lot of the headlines are, Disney closes its ludicrously expensive hotel, right? Or like I saw a couple of those headlines, and it's like, okay. I mean, I remember one of the original articles when they announced the price, somebody was saying that Disney's only targeting wealthy people with this, and I was like, I don't know about that, but because it was expensive, but it wasn't like $50,000 for 3 days. It was a lot more than your regular Disney experience. And for me, it's also too, like, we run into this problem all the time with our vacations down there. It's like, if we're going to Disney, we want to be at Disney for a week and not necessarily take 2 days to go and do something else. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just us. But like, I don't think that factors in that much here. I think it's more about price, because I know a lot of people that put this off because they wanted to do it, but just didn't want to spend the money now, or weren't ready to spend the money now. So I think price definitely had a lot to do with it. But I said this when they announced the price had to be what the price had to be. Like, what they were trying to do here was a very individual experience for every single person. If you're trying to do that, it requires a lot of people. I mean, you just can't, even with 100 rooms, that still requires a ton of cast members to create those individual experiences. It's not, it probably costs them so much money to run this thing. And I just, yeah.
The hard part for me with it was, you're right that it's price, but I think it was price, and there's also a window of opportunity.
Sure, yeah.
And so in my case, it was, when we first heard about this, my son was at an age where we were talking about it and we were excited. Like, I was like, I could justify this because, it would be something I would do with my son that would be a fantastic memory at that time. But fast forward a couple of years to when we saw the price and everything, it was like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is by the time I save up for it, he's already hitting a point like he's kind of, like your son's, Damon, like, he's a teenager. He's not as into it as he was. So I've missed that window of opportunity. And I think this is a hard thing for a lot of people is, you basically have to like, I want to go to this like crazy expensive hotel. My kid is 5 years old. I need to start planning for when they're 10 that I'm going to go here because not everybody has the money to do it. But if you really want to do it, you would save up the money. But that means like, it just doesn't work. Right. Like the window of opportunity is too narrow for like, or like, I guess it's not too narrow. It's that, to save up the money to do this thing was too big. So that's why it didn't work for me, unfortunately.
Well, and we said, you kind of said, and I at the beginning of this, and I feel the same way. I was surprised, but not surprised, because if you've been watching this, so initially the first couple months were booked up full, right? Like they were sold out for months. And then it really waned off quite a bit, right? Like they got through that initial demand very quickly to the point where they were canceling, they were canceling cruises, right? Because they just didn't have enough demand. So they started canceling cruises and like kind of had cut it down to like, I don't think it was half, but they had cut down quite a bit. So they weren't selling out like they were before, right? So really the demand for it had gone down quite a bit. So that's why I wasn't that surprised by it. But like, I don't know. I don't view this thing as a failure. I actually do. I know it can sound like spin that they're trying to say that this was an experiment, but like, I can't see how, and even when they announced it, I could never really see how this was going to be a sustainable thing forever. Right. Like it didn't feel like it could be, right? Because like there are only so many Star Wars fans. And so like you have to have like the waterfall of like this many Star Wars fans that are willing to spend $5,000 for a 2-night thing. You know what I mean? Like it makes it a fairly small group, right? It's not fair. It's not that small, but I mean, it's, there's a lot of Star Wars fans out there, but I mean, I think if you did with any property that's really popular, that at some point the demand would wane for it. It's you end up going through that first group of really hardcore fans, and then eventually it's like, okay, like Damon said, it
had to have multiple stories or something.
They had said that they were going to change it up at some point, but they obviously never got there.
Yeah, but I think that they had a plan for that right up front.
They had a plan.
That's what they really needed to do.
Yeah, but would that have saved it though? Like if they announced and they say, "Oh, we got all new stories," like,
I mean, that would have been cool for me.
Yeah,
that would have brought some repeat business. But yeah, the problem there is that, like you said, it doesn't sustain that hype. And this is the hard thing with IPs in general is, you can look at, whether it's, Star Wars or Marvel or DC or like any of these, like, what were, very heavily story driven IPs. Like you can look at, over the years, like something like, Superman, for example, there's been phases that it's like, Superman was super popular and then it kind of falls off and then it comes back and then it falls off. Sustaining something like a hotel like this assumes that you never have the fall off.
Well, right? And now Star Wars is in more of a down period, right? They have the Mandalorian, but outside of that,
I mean, it's weird because they've kind of kept this constant trickle of stuff going on.
Small trickle, yeah.
That because before it was, we had like the movies and then nothing and then the prequels, and that was like huge hype, and then kind of, wasn't great towards the end. But then, 7, 8, 9 came along and the hype came back. But now it's kind of normal, or it's leveled out, I think is the thing. But I don't think having it leveled out means that, we're in a good place where we can run something like this 24/7. Right?
I do wonder to myself though, Trevor, if like, let's say they had released a Star Wars movie every 2 years starting last year, maybe they do keep it open. I mean, you know what I mean? Maybe they do have more of a demand, because it's kind of at a point right now where if you're not watching The Mandalorian or like that animated show they have out, then
Visions,
it's not really out in the forefront right now. Like when you have like a blockbuster movie in the theaters, I mean, there's a different level of attention and hype there, right? Like, I know The Mandalorian's big. I'm just saying, like, maybe if they had those movies in theaters and they had plans for more movies, they could tie that in better,
So my argument against that is that Marvel has been doing that, and
sure. Yeah.
I'm actually less interested in Marvel now than I was, 2 years ago, and especially so if they were like, "Hey, we got a Marvel hotel," I'd be like, "That's a hard pass," because I wouldn't even be considering it, because it's just the point about that is, even every 2 years, it sounds like that's sustainable, but there's a saturation point.
Oh, of course.
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting then. So if we look at that and then take a look at the parks, was building a Star Wars land a bad idea?
I don't know though. I mean, because that would say, is building any IP land a bad idea?
No. But building any IP land with that large, with that amount of money.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Because they haven't really done that.
Yeah. I mean,
Avatar was the first one, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was the big, yeah.
Okay. But not on the same scale. And Avatar, I don't know. I wonder sometimes that, right, they kind of like threw all their eggs in one basket, to be honest with you.
I mean, but I didn't see the last Avatar movie. I'm not really into Avatar, but the last Avatar movie was again huge, though. Like it was a big movie. I mean, it made
but at some point that's got to go away, right?
You think so? Yeah, but like I also don't go to Avatar Land because I like Avatar. Like I go into it because I like the land, right? Like I don't really.
Okay, but
I don't care about
Star Wars. Different. I think Star Wars is a little different.
Yeah, I mean, but I also feel like that's part of why they didn't make like Star Wars Land like Tatooine or something. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's why they made it like this generic Star Wars-esque land instead of a specific place, Tied
to a place in the movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I get that.
Yeah, because they made it like its own place that they could like kind of mold it to what they want it to be. But
to Damon's point though is, eventually Star Wars Land is going to hit a point where, or Star Wars is going to hit a point where, it's going to be around, but it's not going to have the same weight that it's had for the last little while.
Sure.
And then it becomes a question of, does that put Hollywood studios back in a place where it's like, oh, people don't go to Hollywood studios because there's that one land that nobody goes to.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, it seems like a waste of space. And then it turns into, this becomes the problem of, when you look at some of the older lands, they're a lot more generic in that, Tomorrowland, Adventureland, all that kind of stuff. Even in Hollywood studios, like they have like the whole Hollywood Boulevard kind of section. Like it's specifically generic because then you don't end up in a position where it's like, well, we have to like completely, do a new project to redo all of this because whatever was here before is irrelevant. Like,
are they making Star Wars to keep the land relevant?
I mean, I don't know if they make it to keep the land relevant. I think they, do it to keep the brand relevant, right? I mean,
yeah.
But the land and the brand are kind of
they're intertwined,
tied somewhat.
But at the same time, like if Disney bought Lucasfilm and then didn't build a land around Star Wars, people would be like, "Why didn't you build a land around Star Wars? Like you own it now, do it." Like you know what I mean? I almost feel like they don't even have a choice in that matter.
I kind of agree with you, but listen, this Young Jedi cartoon to me again is kind of down this path I'm talking about, like. So we're talking about Young Jedi for teenagers as a show. I mean, teenagers, sorry, for toddlers as a show. I mean, teenagers may be watching it, right? But that's fine. Sure. But as a show, for the benefit of the park or the brand. And I almost think, I'm going to tell you that I lean towards the park on this one.
Really? I think it's for the franchise. I
really do.
I think they're trying to get kids interested in Star Wars, and then
absolutely, but
it's the whole ecosystem.
And I think that's what the problem is, right? So if you're a kid and you're a toddler, like now you might be a little bit more interested because Young Jedi rather than maybe not being interested. Again, I think it's this thing where you got to feed all parts of it. Yeah. And was that a good idea? I don't know.
I mean, we say that, right? But like,
they're making money, so that's fine.
Well, yeah, they're making money. Those movies made a ton of money, right? But I also like it, like, you see a lot of kids like dressed like Rey in the parks, you know what I mean? Like, or out there, right? Like, so in a way it worked, like it's, I don't know.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, but
let me throw this one out there. Okay, so we have before Star Wars and Land and all that, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
Okay.
Okay, so that was a ride built because of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Snow White. So a classic show.
Okay. Yep.
But you haven't seen any supporting, like there hasn't been like,
don't you
new
dare
adventures.
Forget about my favorite show on Disney. Don't you dare.
Which show are you talking about?
Well, it directly relates to this ride. Trevor.
Trevor in the Seven Dwarfs, or
Trevor
Once Upon a Time.
Trevor, the 7Ds.
No.
Oh
dude.
Yes. Okay. Fine.
Yes.
Okay. Fair.
Was a totally underrated show.
But that has nothing to do with the ride itself.
I mean, it could though.
The ride is very clearly tuned to the classic movie. True. So my point is, do they need to keep beating us over the head with new movies and new IP in this universe to keep the land relevant, I guess is the thing. Okay. Like, would people still go there, even if there wasn't, a new Star Wars show, because they built, a ride. They've done this multiple times, but they built rides on like 30-plus-year-old IP. And because people still love that IP and it doesn't need to keep like
a ride versus a land though is a stretch.
But when do you stop? Like when do you just let it like sit for a bit and just be Star Wars land, right?
Yeah. I mean, so Star Wars, listen, Star Wars is good. I like Star Wars. The land's good. All that, blah, blah, blah. But they had Star Wars. Would you trade in Star Wars land for 3 distinct IP rides instead?
Just like discombobulated, like 3
just
IPs
their own things.
next to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of seems like what they're doing in Epic Universe, right? They're just making.
Well, no, they have lands though in Epic Universe.
They have lands, but they're generic topic lands, right? So it's like Like they're going to.
Well, I don't think
Land.
How to Train Your Dragon is a generic topic land.
No, but I think there's also like a Universal Monster Land, like that's just.
But that's only one. Then you have Nintendo Land. I mean, that Nintendo, straddles the line of generic specific. Yeah, somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, though. Like, do you have
Nintendo Land's Mario Land? It's not Nintendo Land.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the land is Mario, right? So it's. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I think, like I said, How to Train Your Dragon is pretty specific, but the lands are they smaller? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. So again, I think the question just begs, like, would I rather in 5 years from now see 3 distinct IP rides in Star Wars Land rather than Star Wars Land?
But interesting to your point, Damon, though, right? Mm-hmm. Like what they revealed about what they were thinking about doing at Magic Kingdom was kind of what you're talking about. Right, putting Coco, putting Encanto, and putting the Villains Land all kind of in the same spot, right? Like all like next to each other, and not just one big land. It's just like 3 IPs next to each other,
and that's okay because I feel like there's a tie to them.
There is,
but I think with Star Wars Land, the tie is the amount of different shows, but still set in the same universe. You're talking about different universes with a teeny bit of, a thread of some sort of, connection.
Yeah.
I mean,
common ground. Yeah.
I know what you're saying though. Like, do you need to keep producing stuff to make that, to continue it on? I feel like you probably don't, right? Because you still have, all of those things they made are still there, right? Like,
it doesn't invalidate what's already been released. Like you don't, like I said, that's my point about Seven Dwarfs is that they didn't have to release, Snow White Electric Boogaloo in order to.
But they had the 70s, which is one of the greatest cartoons that existed on that channel.
Okay, fine, but they didn't have to go back and like hype it up. Like people still went, and I think
but that's a ride versus a land, though.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I know what you're saying. Like they've done a Star Wars ride before. They could have done another Star Wars ride. Did it need a whole land? I don't know. I think you're kind of right that they put too many eggs in one basket. I don't think they put them all in, but I think
I don't think they put them all in either.
I think there's too many eggs in one basket, and to your point, I think the difference is that some of these other IPs, you can still go there and you can be like, yeah, I enjoyed this. Even though I haven't watched the movie in 20 years, I still enjoy the park. I feel like Star Wars Land though, because they keep like there's a new generation, there's a new whatever, and it gets to a point where it's like this. It doesn't feel like it's something. Or it cheapens it, I guess, is what I feel. It
so like the Star Wars hold the same classic, title as Snow White.
Well, it's interesting.
I mean, the originals do.
Yeah, well, if you, I just Googled, for fun here, the highest grossing franchises or intellectual property, right? Mm-hmm. And so according to this list, of course, it's on Wikipedia, Star Wars is the 3rd highest grossing of all time.
What's 1 and 2?
Pokemon is number 1.
Okay. Whoever has a Pokemon land wins. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this is everything, right? So licensed merchandise, games, box office, and then second is Mickey Mouse and Friends. Now, given Mickey Mouse and Friends has a head start on everybody of starting in 1928, and Pokemon's 96 and Star Wars is 77. So, but
what if there was a what if there was a Pokemon land?
I mean,
what if a new company besides Universal and Disney made a Pokemon land?
Have you been to Japan?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that would be the greatest thing ever. So what about this? Who owns this other, what's that, the studio, the park that has all the Warner Brothers stuff?
Oh, yeah. That's, well, Warner Brothers is also in like Cedar Fair though too, like because they have like DC characters and Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, but that park though looks like it's cool.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because they're trying to build some parks too. Isn't Paramount has some parks too? I think actually.
Well, they have that thing in New Jersey, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. You guys already have me for over an hour, and I don't think we're even like halfway through.
No. This is why we need to skip the random ride this week.
Yeah.
But no. Listen, I think I understand what you're saying. I also just think like the obvious thing when Disney acquires Star Wars is, of course, we're going to build a land. Like, how are we not going to build a land? Like the criticism they would get for just being like, no, we're not going to build a land.
What business sense versus what makes me happy don't have to intersect at all.
No,
they really don't. I mean, I'm okay with that. So I don't know.
I just worry they've leaned in too hard.
They've oversaturated. You feel like they've oversaturated.
Is kind of that, back to the original topic, which was the Starcruiser. I think that's part of why it is where it is that, it was too expensive, but also, it's not like it has the hype that it should have had.
Sure.
That, people would justify spending that kind of money.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, if they had let's say they rebooted the trilogy, they did a whole new trilogy and it was really popular. It was like it wasn't like the last couple, and they like almost rebooted it successfully. Do they end up doing better in the hotel? I think so. I don't know. Maybe,
but still not probably enough for the line item to make a difference, unfortunately.
I agree with you, Damon. I don't think even if they did that in the long term, I still don't think it works out. But
I don't know. Well, listen, before I go, though, we got to talk about this Disney Plus Hulu thing. Because that's the last thing.
Can we do the ad real quick, Damon?
You can. You definitely can.
All right, so our sponsor of this episode is Monera Financial. Monera, a World of DVC company, is the industry leader for financing DVC resale contracts. Monera offers lending with the longest terms available at 12 years, the option of no credit check, instant approval, low down payments, and no prepayment penalties. If you're thinking of purchasing a DVC contract in the resale market, go check out their quick online quote first. You may be surprised at just how affordable joining DVC can be. Go to monerafinancial.com or call 317-245-8800, and when you speak to them, be sure to let them know that Welcome Home sent you. All right, so Damon, you want to talk about this? So Disney's taking a tactic that you've seen Warner Brothers do with HBO. Couple other Showtime is doing it, where they're culling some of the underperforming things from their platforms.
Right, and that's just so they don't have to pay.
So they don't have to pay, yeah.
Yeah, residuals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But gosh, and I think that we're also going to see, and this is just a guess, right? Because there's been talk about Disney buying out that 20-something, 30-something percent
of Hulu. Yeah.
So that it's going to be combined into one, right? I mean, HBO did the same thing, right? They have Max now. Well, in a couple of days, they have Max, right? Which is going to be Cinemax and HBO all combined into one, right? Like, I think that makes sense, and I'm good with that. I think that Disney Plus and Hulu together 100% makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you're talking about pulling off new stuff like Willow. Like, I haven't even seen Willow yet.
I know Willow's only been up there since November, and it got really good reviews. It got excellent.
I heard it was terrible as well. Me and Tom must meet different review sites, I think. Yeah, I heard it did not do well. That people did not like it, but maybe those are reviewers. I think Tom is a general audience when he says.
Oh, I didn't watch it. I'm just saying I read articles.
No. But I'm saying what you read, I think, is general audience liking it versus I like to read like what reviewers think of it, which probably are two different things.
No, I mean, maybe it's just different sites. Like the article I included in here actually, the article that's in here actually says that called Willow very underrated and like I forget what they actually said in here, but they
but if something's popular and good, it's usually not underrated, right?
No, it's the problem. It's fair, but anyway. I'm saying The Verge gave them a good review. That's what that's the site that I was citing. So,
but anyway, I think the problem is like that was just on my list of like, oh, I want to get to watching that. Like, dude, like that's too soon. Like, don't make it hard for me to watch stuff like that. You're forcing me to watch stuff so quickly. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like,
by the way, we never even covered the fact that they're merging Hulu into Disney Plus. And by the way, this is a very American thing. Everywhere else in the world, Hulu doesn't exist, and all of the Hulu content is on Disney Plus. So,
well, I think when they originally started, I think again part of that thought process was, hey, here's Disney Plus. Feel safe letting your kid turn it on and watch whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then they realized that probably wasn't sustainable and that they needed to change that up a little bit. And this is where we're kind of ending up. I mean, it was a good thought process because, in the beginning, Disney Plus was, pretty much just kid stuff, which was fine. But now with the way that they have all the sort of things where you can limit what people see, like it's not the worst. I think my biggest problem with this, like I said, is just you're going to remove stuff that's not that old. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, give me a chance, man.
Yeah, that is definitely tough. Like I said, I don't know why we didn't talk about the whole fact that those two were merging, because I've been saying that forever, that I thought I mean, it makes no sense to run two parallel, streaming services. Like the costs associated with that, like it just, I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me.
This is entirely a you problem.
Well, yeah,
right.
I know, because you don't even know what Hulu is in Canada.
Yeah,
but
it's all rolled into Disney Plus outside.
It's one app.
So,
but you also don't have everything that we have. That's though, true, right? Yeah. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, you're right. There's some things that come a bit later, but ultimately, like it's like 80 to 90% the same content. So it's not. Hope
you don't want to really watch that last 10%, though. That's the problem, right?
Well, I mean,
I think geolocation in general should just go away. To be honest with you, in terms of
that's a dumb thing in my opinion as well. But there's. It's governments making weird rules.
And the reason that they're doing this because they lost 4 million subscribers. I think the other problem with this is that with more and more streaming services and original content coming, people are looking at like value, and Disney Plus without Hulu had a different value to it because you really only had kid stuff. And then The Mandalorian, right? Like, so like, what if you just don't like kid stuff, but you like The Mandalorian, like, or Marvel, and then you had that and Boba Fett, like you're paying for 2 shows. And I think that's the problem. Like there's a lot of stuff in general that I have to pay for. Like I have Paramount Plus now, which again, I like some shows on it. I have Peacock, which there's a few shows on it. We're starting to get to the point where everything's just so expensive now. So I can see people, leaving services in general. I also think there should be an easier way to kind of deal with services that just have single shows. I think it's kind of hard to do that now.
By itself, like to buy.
Yeah. I mean, then that muddies the waters even more. Like
then we're back to like a Blockbuster-esque rental type scheme, right?
I mean, we have that now.
I might not be adverse to that, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it's funny because it kind of goes back to
right. It all kind of comes back around. Yeah. Like a la carte, I can watch 2 shows on your Disney Plus for the month. And that's it.
I feel that way about news articles all the time, where I'll click on a news article and then it has a paywall and I'm like, I'd pay 99 cents to read this right now, but I'm not going to pay you, $10 a month to read it, Yes. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And truthfully, when Disney Plus first started, the Hulu, ESPN Plus, Disney Plus bundle was a tremendous value. It was like $13 for all 3 of them. Like,
but now that's ran out.
Yeah, and they've raised prices. So like part of the reason why they lost 4 million subscribers, they just raised prices. I mean, like
you also have this thing too where like when Disney Plus first came out, right? People were like, "Hey, I want to watch Recess." Right? Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Or Jake Long, right? Like something super awesome that I just kind of forgot about, right?
Yeah.
But I only really need to watch Jake Long once every 20 years, I feel like. Right? Like I'm good. I'm good now. Like I love the show. It was super awesome. But I watched it again and now I'm good for a long time. I think, you kind of get a little bit of that as well. Like, hey, I kind of watched what I wanted to watch. Or, kids kind of grow out of that stage. Like, hey, Tom needs Disney Plus 100%. No questions asked.
I need it.
Yeah.
But David and Trevor don't need Disney Plus, right? Like Tom needs Disney Plus.
Yeah. I mean, the last kids show we watched on Disney Plus was Special Agent Oso. So
I don't even know what that is.
Really?
No, I don't know. What is that? I've never even heard of that.
Oh, okay. Was it? What's his name was the voice for it? People are going to kill me over this.
I have no idea.
Why am I blank? Mikey and the Goonies.
Okay. Now you're making me.
Sean Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was like, I mean, yeah. Disney Plus.
I like that you went to Goonies on that one. That was
well. That's why I was like, oh yeah, it's him, right? I was also like, it was Bob from Stranger Things.
Bob from Stranger. That's a good one. How many people do you think saw him for the first time as Bob in Stranger Things? Definitely younger people, right?
Yeah. I mean, I made my kid watch Goonies before Stranger Things.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that's just good parenting, so.
Yeah. but yeah, anyway, yeah, back to what we were saying about, the whole Disney Plus thing. It's, outside of the States, it's been what you were talking about, it's been that merged, like everything. But, I get why they're kind of trying to realign things and why they're trying to, get everything back into, one-stop shop, right? I think that may be what a lot of this is alluding to is, Disney's looking at going, well, in order for us to do this, some of these shows don't, for various reasons. Like, I think it's looking at the list. I think there was, Willow and The World According to Jeff Goldblum were the only shows that I were interested in or had watched. So like the whole rest of that list, and it's not fair to say no because I don't want to watch it, that it's irrelevant.
That no one else should.
Yeah, but it's. I can see where Disney is trying to. I feel like they're trying to clean up a little bit of a mess that was.
Yeah, Iger's cleaning up Chapek's mess. That's what he's still doing. I mean, he's still cleaning up his mess, right?
And I think a lot of the shows that got greenlit, I don't. And it's not to say that Bob Iger is right in these decisions. I think he's looking at it. He's got a different vision for things, and I just don't think that having a bunch of these extra shows, like I guess the way I'm seeing it is that I feel like Chapek was like, yeah, let's turn this into another like cable TV, like, throw everything in there. And I think Bob Iger is more like, no, we want to be specific about the kind of stuff that we offer and not just have a bunch of
not just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Which I guess back to that point. So yeah, unfortunately, Damon had to step away, but I was going to actually say that, the whole thing about like different streaming services is, the whole trial thing and all that is, I'm kind of at a point where like, Disney Plus is okay for me at the moment because there's enough stuff on there for me to watch, but I've gone through phases where it's like, whether it's Paramount or Netflix or whatever, is it's like, you kind of watch what you want to watch on those platforms. But like, I think something that maybe Disney has to come to terms with is that people are going to hop. And it's going to be, it may be that, for now, there's nothing I want to watch here. And I've done this with like Netflix before. It was like, I canceled my Netflix for a while because it was like, I'm not watching anything on here. But then, a year later or whatever, it was, oh yeah, actually they got some shows now. I'll resubscribe, see what's new. And it's the couple of shows that you're interested in, but then you end up finding like, oh, there was a bunch of, other shows that came up that like you kind of like dig down through the library, but then you get bored of it again and you drop it. Right.
I very rarely watch Netflix, to your point. Right. Like the last time I watched like an entire series on Netflix was Stranger Things, the last season. I mean, like, and maybe, my wife and I like to watch Great British Bake Off. Right. So like, we'll watch that. But like outside of that, like, there's really not a lot on Netflix. And to your point, there's so many streaming services now. We're paying, and we literally have all of them. Like we've got HBO, we've got Paramount, we've got Peacock, we've got Disney, we've got Netflix, we've got all of them. And part of that is, because of my stage in life where my daughter is into a lot of different things and it's on a lot of different services. Like, she likes Paw Patrol. That's on Paramount. She likes Bluey. That's on Disney. She likes Mickey stuff. That's on Disney. Like she likes Cocomelon. That's on Netflix. Like it's all spread out all over the place, and so you almost have to, right? Like, but at the same time, it's like it to me, it never made sense that, and by the way, too, I don't love this idea because there are so many shows that like I remember from like, childhood that you just can't find streaming anywhere. And I'm just like, why? Like, I want to watch this. Like, I want to watch Kids in the Hall, right? Like, I can't find Kids in the Hall anywhere. It doesn't. I know, right? I used to watch that all the time when I was a kid on Comedy Central on reruns. I can't find that streaming,
Respect
though.
For some good Canadian
Canadian stuff. Yeah, exactly. Respect for the Canadians right there.
Yeah.
But, like, random stuff like that, right? And it's like, oh, it doesn't exist. So, like, for me, I'm all about, like, more stuff, more better, right? Like I want to be able to search the internet for anything that's ever been made and find it streaming somewhere, but that's just not the reality. And, really, this is an accounting move, right? If you really look at it. And Disney's not the only one doing this, obviously. HBO did it. Showtime did it. Really, this is just an accounting move because they can remove this content and then they can do this thing called an impairment charge where they, of 1.5 to 1.8 billion to remove them, right? Like, so it's really them just, with their helping with their earnings. Really, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, which stinks, right? Like, it stinks. And to your point, Trevor, like the only two things on here that I watched that I didn't even watch all the way through was I watched Earth to Ned, which I thought was a fun Muppet kind of show. It wasn't Muppets, but it was like, it was done by
Muppet-esque, yeah,
and it was fun and weird, and I watched a couple episodes and I thought it was kind of funny. And then we did watch the first season of the Jeff Goldblum, the World According to Jeff Goldblum, but if you watch that show, Jeff Goldblum just kind of like goes and like looks at like weird things and goes, like that Jeff Goldblum thing that he does. You know what I mean?
that was strangely accurate for your impression there.
that was my limited my limited Jeff Goldblum impression.
It was good.
Yes. Oh, okay. That's what he does.
I know, but the topics were interesting. Was the thing?
No, it was an interesting show. We really liked the first season of it. Like, we just never. I think they made a second season. We just never watched it. But the rest of the stuff I wasn't really into. And I know, like Damon, I think he said he liked Big Shot. I feel like he said he liked Mighty Ducks too. That was was this the new series, Game Changers? That was the new series, right? I don't know.
I did not pay attention to most of these outside of one or two.
I didn't either. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't care about the Cheaper by the Dozen remake. I didn't even know they did it. I didn't see the first one, a couple. Didn't they make a couple of those? I don't know. But the rest of these, I'm like
3 or 4. But
yeah. I am not gonna lie. I don't love that they're culling Harmonious. Here they're just like, Harmonious is gone. Let's just make sure it doesn't exist anymore. Like, I like having access to those things. I want to pop up on Disney Plus and go, let me watch Harmonious right now.
Yeah, but the hard thing about that is, and I guess, like you said, this comes down to the investor thing and all that. And I guess the thing that people don't always realize is, there is a cost to keep these things on the service. Even Disney doesn't always own these things exclusively, or they can't just let them sit. And there's a cost to keeping it up on their servers and all that. They may have looked at it and got, like you said, while Harmonious is no longer a thing and they don't want to keep it up there. I guess, I could see the other side, that one particularly, I could see somebody finding it on Disney Plus and then going to the parks in like 3 or 4 years and then getting mad at a cast member because they couldn't watch Harmonious.
Because it doesn't exist anymore.
Like that would happen. Like that's the crazy part, right? Is that would happen. So that one particularly, I can understand that. Some of these, it seems like they, you kind of go, well, could you have just left it where it was? But I'm sure, again, Bob Iger being Bob Iger, I'm sure this is very strategic and deliberate, and looking at not just things that are in flight with current production costs, but maybe things that just keeping it on the service is hurting them, because if nobody's consuming it, they're not getting ad revenue, they're not getting anything from it. So it's like, why keep it there? Right.
Yeah, no, it's a straight up business decision, right? Like if nobody's watching these things, and listen, I mean, it could be that 50,000 people are watching them, and you're like, and that's just not a lot, right? When you have 100 and what are they? I forget what their last count was, but it's over 100 million subscribers to Disney Plus. That
was like 150 million or something like that.
Yeah, like if only like 1 million people are watching something, that's not really that much, right? Like it's a really small percentage of users. So like, I mean, I get why they're doing it. I don't love it, but I totally understand it. And I think it makes business sense to remove things that people aren't watching. Like, I get it. And like I said, none of these are like really marquee stuff. Like you notice, like there's no Star Wars stuff being taken out. There's very limited Marvel stuff that no one cares about being taken out. There's no Mickey Mouse stuff being taken out. It's kind of like some of the side stuff, Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like it's things that, I think it's things that if Iger was running it at the time, they wouldn't have gotten greenlit in the first place, which
Probably, yeah.
I know like Willow, I think is on the border of, I think maybe the way that they're going about Willow may be not something that current Disney wants to deal with. Right.
Well, I also think though too, like Willow I feel like it's a nostalgia play because it's really old at this point, right? Like I didn't even have nostalgia for that, and I'm not that old, but I'm not that young either. So
I did, but I still was not like, I need to sit down and watch this. Yeah. Like it was like, oh, cool. I liked Willow. And that was about it.
But it's a nostalgia play that was already kind of a niche, thing. So I mean, I don't know. But by the way, going back to Harmonious, I can just watch it on YouTube. There's a million YouTube videos. So I guess
exactly. That's part of it too, is, why you don't need to watch it on Disney Plus. So
no, I mean, I've talked about this before. I like that show. I thought it was tremendously moving and stuff like that. But at the same time, and Trevor, you and I talked about this as we walked around the park. Total eyesore during the day. At night, it was amazing, but and it was great to watch. But not only was it an eyesore during the day, but you had to be in certain spots to really get the full thing. But I did think when the show was going and you had a good spot that it was a beautiful show, and the technology behind it, like the way they mess with water and lighting, and they did some incredible stuff in that show. And it's disappointing to me. A lot of people hated it, but I also understand. I think if we didn't have that stuff sitting there all day, like if they rolled those barges out every day, like they did with Illuminations, that people maybe would have hated it less. But but that comes with probably a cost that they didn't want to figure out either. Yeah, maybe. We'll see what they're going to do next. Trevor, I don't know if you've watched, and this is really an aside, but because we're not talking about this at all, but have you watched the drone show that they're doing at Paris with Avengers? Because it is awesome.
I've seen some clips from it. It is, it is
really
very cool. I wish I could actually, there's a couple of places in the world that seem to have some pretty impressive drone shows. It's just,
well, listen, that's what we're hoping replaces Harmonious, right? Like the talk has been about drone shows replacing Harmonious. So
I don't know. I still feel like it's, they're too weather sensitive.
I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah,
that's just my take on it, but I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Yeah. I hope you're wrong too. So just to go back a little bit in our so we're not going to talk a lot about this, even though people probably want us to, but we're not going to. Back when Chapek was in charge, he had announced that Imagineering was going to move its headquarters basically to Florida, right? And this was controversial within Imagineering. Like they lost a lot of top Imagineers that didn't want to move to Florida for one reason or another. I mean, it's all the way across the country, so you could understand that even just from, regardless of what state it is, moving from one coast to the other, it's a big change, right? It's
not ideal.
No. And a lot of cast members, didn't want to do it. They lost a lot of Imagineers because of this. And, this was going to be a big development, in the Orlando area for Disney. And there's been a lot of change since then. And obviously this was a Chapek decision, and Iger's in charge now. So they have gone and canceled this project. So they're no longer bringing them there. They had already moved some Imagineers to Florida.
Yeah. My understanding was it was around 200 people had already started moving
out of a total.
Either moved.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. 200 out of the 2,000 had either started or were already there. Yeah. And now their plan is for those that have moved, they're going to figure out how to, move them back or do whatever they need to there. The interesting thing is that, some people that left over, maybe they'll get some of those Imagineers back if if they haven't found something that better that they want to do. But Iger just decided to undo that. So.
Well, it's
no more move.
Though. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of reasons for why they decided to pull out of this.
We're not going to get into that.
We're not going to get into the political reasons. I think if you've been paying attention, that Disney is feuding with the state of Florida, right? Like, that's happening. There's lawsuits involved. We're not going to get into all that because we don't want to get into politics. That's not something we do here. But I think we needed to bring this up because it was something interesting. And, to your point, Trevor, right? Like, Iger also went back, and I don't know if this is why Bruce Vaughan left in the first place, the chief creative officer of Imagineering, but he brought him back again, right? So like maybe Bruce coming back, who was a very popular executive at Imagineering, and then also not making people make this move, it's gonna be a big change, and maybe bring some of those people back. I've talked about this before. I know somebody that works at Universal Creative, and I was talking to her, and she was telling me, most of the people that work at Universal Creative worked at Imagineering, and a lot of the people that work at Imagineering worked at Universal Creative.
Yeah, they go back and forth.
Go back and forth. And in fact, my friend that works there said when, they're done with Epic Universe that they're going to look to go to Imagineering. So like, it's just, they go back and forth between the two groups. Right. So, I do think it's interesting though, because in a lot of ways, having Imagineering in Florida makes sense, right? Because Disney World is their biggest property by far. And I'm sure what they're doing, especially if they're going to invest $17 billion over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of big projects going on. And if you know anything about Imagineering, if you watch, again, I always reference the Imagineering story, watch it if you haven't. When they do these projects, the Imagineers that are working on them essentially move to wherever the place, temporarily move to the place that it's being done. So like, the foreign parks, they had Imagineers that would go to China for 3 years and do these things. My friend that works at Universal Creative, they moved to China for several years to work on a park there for Universal. Like, that's what they do, right? So like, in a way, it almost made sense for them to have the headquarters there. And it's like, you don't have to have those Imagineers constantly, traveling or moving themselves to Florida to work on these big projects at Disney World. But the one thing that, or it makes sense from that standpoint, but something that I did see that Iger was quoted on saying was that, and this was when he wasn't in charge of Disney, like, because people would always ask him his opinion on decisions that were being made. And what Iger said was that he felt that keeping creative teams together was more important. And from that view, we love thinking about the parks and go, well, it makes sense because, Disney World's a big park, but there is, Disneyland is still there. And, a lot of the stuff that happens between Disneyland, Disney World is mirrored, but then also there is the movie production side of it, which is as much involved with Imagineering. So thinking about it from that point of view is that, you've got a lot of creative people on the West Coast that, if you split up Imagineering between, effectively split it between the East and the West Coast, it would actually make, getting that kind of collaboration between movies, parks, and all that, I think it would have made it a lot harder from just a general collaboration standpoint. And I think that was, like I said, like Iger made that statement a long time ago. And I think that may be driving part of this decision as well, is just that, hey, it doesn't make sense to, we want you guys all working together to, figure out the next big thing, but y'all are on opposite sides of the continent. Like, exactly. Yeah. Listen, I do think, I truly believe, we talked about the $17 billion. I don't think that that's just a talking point. They said it in their earnings call. You can't just say stuff in earnings calls, right? Like, if they would have just said it separately, you could call it bluster, but they literally said it on an earnings call. So you really have to kind of look at that as they really do want to commit that much. And if that's the case, Imagineering is very busy right now, right? Like they're really working hard. And like I said, we talked about this before with Bruce Vaughan back at the head. Like he was, the head of creative during some of the best years of new attractions, some of the most popular things that were built. And a lot of people saw after he left, they felt like, things changed or that things declined. Right. So it's great to have people like that back and some of the old guard. And, if you remember too, during the past couple of years, you had people like Joe Rohde to, just retire and he didn't even really retire because he went to another company, right? Like he's doing design for, I think it's like Virgin Galactic or something. Right. So like you lost some of the brain trust at Imagineering. And part of that was because of this move. Part of them did not want to move and they were going to move 90% of Imagineering. And I mean, so it's definitely a huge change. I think hopefully they can get back some of the talent they lost because of it. And because I do think, I kind of feel like we're on the precipice of another Disney decade, right? Like of huge expansion, lots of investment, Iger really believes in the parks. Like, it's interesting because Chapek, despite being the chairman of the parks for years before he became CEO, I felt like he didn't understand the company, like that he doesn't understand that, like, Iger feels that the parks are like the heart of the company, you know, and he believes in investing in them. And he said that many times. He says, I'm very bullish on the parks, right? Like, he's been saying that. So that's the kind of thing that parks fans want to hear, right? Is I'm bullish on the parks, meaning they're going to add a lot. You know,
and I hope that, you know, because the thing is that Iger can't keep doing this forever.
Of course not. No, he's got to find a replacement.
Yeah, but I hope that these things seem like he's making moves and decisions, and I feel like he's kind of giving, you know, somebody a roadmap of, like, you know, I've done all the groundwork for, you know, this is, if you want this to work over the next 10 or 15 years, you know, here are the key things that need to happen, right?
Yeah, like if he sets up that blueprint of the Disney decade again, and he says, listen, here's what we're going to do the next 10 years. Next CEO, here's what you do, right? Like, we got it set. We got the strategy down. You just need to execute, right? Like, right?
Yeah. Give them a playbook and, you know, let them run it, because I feel that's what these kinds of decisions are leading into.
I agree with you. And you know, I know that we're in a lull right now, right? Like, where Disney's finishing up their existing projects. But like I said, I think before the end of the year, we're going to hear a lot of big announcements. Now, whether those are at Disney World or they're elsewhere, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know what they're going to do in Disney World. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I don't think that they're just going to completely abandon Disney World and not do anything. I think they will.
No.
I just don't think we've heard it yet.
I think it, you know, like I said, I'm going back to my belief right now is that we're seeing still the aftermath of the blip, and
I agree. Yeah,
and it's, you know, that's what
it's true.
That's what we call it in my house. It is like it was a blip of, like, you know, almost 2 years worth of time, and, you know, a lot of things just aren't going to happen immediately because of it. And I think, you know, we just have to be patient. And, you know, to be honest, I don't think it's a bad thing that we don't have anything kind of planned for the next little bit. I think because if, you know, this kind of goes back to the whole Star Wars Marvel thing, is that if they keep, you know, oh, there's something new, don't worry, you come back in 6 months and we'll have something new, that kind of loses its luster after some time as well. That, like, it, you know, if there's, or absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Yeah,
you know,
sure,
because then the next thing that they do announce, it'll be like, oh, you know, hey, this is exciting. I'm going to look at this because there hasn't been anything for a bit. Like, it piques your interest, right? So I don't think it's bad that we aren't hearing anything in the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's a cycle too, right? Like, you know, you have this cycle of, like, I mean, just over the past 6 years that we've been doing the show, you know, we're talking about, wait, did Avatar open at the beginning of our show when we first started, right? Like, I think
it was pretty close. Yeah. Because it was still like the 300-minute waits for Flight of Passage at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just in the past 6 years, they've opened 2 huge new lands, right? They've added on to Tomorrowland and Magic Kingdom. They've, you know, redone all of Epcot, the front part of Epcot. You know, like, there's been a lot that they've done. They built several new hotels. Like, they've done a lot of stuff in the past just 5 years alone, right? Like, it's not like they're just not doing anything. And I do think, you know, we're at the bottom of the cycle right now, right? Like, so they're going to announce new stuff, and sure, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years away, but at least we're going to have a roadmap of what's coming next, you know?
Yeah.
I honestly believe we're going to hear about this stuff before the end of the year, or, you know, whatever the next D23 is, which I don't know off the top of my head, but
I thought it was around September timeframe.
Yeah, let me see. D23 Expo 2023. Okay, let's see here. You're right, September 10th. You were right, 9th and 10th. Okay, so there you go. But yeah, no, I see us having, I see us getting some, you know, some more news on these things. So anyway, we'll find out though. I guess we know the way to know. So
yeah, let's. So we have a couple more topics here. I think we're really kind of pushing our time here. Yeah.
Yeah. So really quickly here. So there's some new summer ticket offers. 4-day, 4-park magic, $99 per day. Pretty good deal. Although it's funny because, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, just a side note to this. I've seen people commenting on, oh, Disney must be hurting for money if they're doing this. No. What I see this as is they were doing this before.
Exactly.
This is them going back to previous behavior, which is, they offer promos at various times a year, and they're actually just finally getting back into pre-COVID behavior. It's not that they need 100%. Money. It's just, this is part of their business design, I guess would be the best way to put it.
They use these promos. You notice, like, you look at these promos and it'll be like, cannot use between these dates and these dates and these dates and these dates. Because what they're trying to do with these things is fill in the gaps, right? They're just trying to have as much attendance over the year as they can. And like you said, I was going to say the exact same thing, Trevor, I swear, because I saw that a couple times, like, oh, they must be hard up for people. It's like, yeah, but they've always done this. Like, they've always had promos throughout the year, even when they were at peak busyness before COVID. Like, they just always had some sort of promotion going on at different times because they're trying to fill in the gaps. Like, that's just what they do, like.
Do you know what the tell is for me as a Canadian is that they're starting to do this again too, is that they would offer like hotel rates and everything. They would be like 25% off. And the reason that they do that is that actually gets the 25% kind of gets it close to on par with the Canadian dollar, because we're usually about, everything's about 25% more expensive here versus US. So they're starting to do that again here as well. Which again, it's they have no reason to do it other than it just draws Canadians to the park, which they want, right? So,
yeah, and I mean, you're also they have a Florida resident deal too, which is a really good deal, which is $58 per day plus tax for a 4-day ticket. That's a really good deal.
That's wow. That's like 2008 type prices.
It is, yeah. I mean, they're definitely trying to get locals back too. I think this is a way for them to get some locals going again too. So
yeah.
But really quickly, let's talk about these Disneyland updates because we got a couple of them. So, no Fantasmic this summer at Disneyland. Basically, Disneyland is saying Fantasmic will not return till at least Labor Day, which is sad. It's a bummer.
Mm-hmm. It just got too spicy there for the dragon.
Yeah, it's interesting though because they have a B mode. They could do the show without Maleficent, but the stage must have just taken too much damage.
Yeah, I think the larger stage took some damage in that fire, and I think it's also it gives them a chance to really like look at systems and like fix things. So
to make it so that it doesn't catch fire again.
Yeah, because otherwise, it like running the show means like every night they have to make sure it's in a state where it's usable, so they can't really like dive into. Hey, why did this start on fire and stuff like that? So
you would think they would have some sort of fire suppression system built into the framework of the thing, but
if you've seen the way that Maleficent comes up, I like
maybe they just can't do it.
It's kind of hard, like because it's literally like this thing rising up out of the stage, and I think having this suppression built into it, and then. Like, I think it was also kind of automated it had its like, it wasn't somebody like manually doing it where they could make a decision where it's like, oh, that's, run the fire extinguisher now kind of thing, or like hit the big red button to stop it. Like
they just need to have one of those water cannons, not even used for the show, just pointed directly at Maleficent's mouth. And then you only use it in case it catches on fire. Like you just turn it on and it sprays it down. Brilliant idea, Trevor. All right. You just put one of them. Okay. No one will know it's even there.
Yeah. No, there's so many reasons why not.
So
because the boat also runs right in front of there too.
Yeah, the boat runs right.
Yeah, they can't do that.
So we talked about this other thing, right, a while ago, because this started during the pandemic. That Disneyland is basically doing this thing called DisneylandForward, where they're basically saying like they have run out of ability to develop Disneyland, right? So like it says it somewhere in here. We're basically, so Disneyland Resort building all of its permitted entitlements, right? So like they only have so many areas that they're allowed to develop in, right? And so DisneylandForward will not expand the number of hotel rooms and acreage of the theme park attractions that Disney's allowed to develop. Disneyland is already permitted to develop more hotels that it has been able to fit into its current land use. But so they haven't done all of what they can do. And so basically what Disneyland Forward is a pitch to local officials to say, here's what we want to do over the next 20 years, and here's what we need to do it, right? And part of that is permitting and zoning and all that fun stuff. But basically, they're making a pitch to Anaheim of, here's how we want to grow the parks, here's where we want to go with this, and really laying it out there, which I think is really interesting. I mean, I know, this is definitely different than Disney World, right? But it at the same time, it's, they really need to, work on all of these things with the local government a lot more than they do at Disney World, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the municipality has to be on board with their plans, or else, like what we saw a couple of years ago where they started plans to build a new hotel and it basically just got scrapped because the city of Anaheim was like, yeah, no, we don't want to do this. So I know, like, this Disney Forward stuff, or Disneyland Forward stuff, they're having a lot of community like meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because basically like it's not just like the city of Anaheim. It's like they have to get buy-in from the constituents, because the weird thing about Disneyland is I think you heard Jody say it when we had her on the show the other week, is that it's a weird place in that, like, when you go into one of the hotels, you look one way and it's Disneyland, and you look the other way and it's houses. Like it's that, yeah. It's that close. So, all the plans that Disney's trying to make and everything they're trying to execute on, they have to make sure that they're not, that the people that live in that area are good with it, because, it does mean, more shows, more, parks, like it has a larger effect, and it's unlike Disney World, where it's like, well, we can just do a new show, and because it's so far and away from everything else that it's like, they change out the show at Epcot multiple times and nobody says anything, right? But to do a new fireworks show at Disneyland, or to add more to it, would be more difficult, because like they can't be running fireworks 24/7 because there's people that live there. Right. So,
yeah. And this says too, the city of Anaheim is preparing an environmental impact report on the proposal, which would allow Disney to build attractions on space currently reserved for use as parking lots. Disneyland Forward would also allow Disney to mix theme park and hotel development, building new rooms inside its parks, which is not allowed under the current rules. So interesting, right? Yeah. So
that also is leaning more towards the like in Tokyo and Shanghai and whatnot, they actually have, and even Paris actually has, like, the some of the parks have, like, the hotels are like right in the park kind of thing. Well, which
it reminds me of the concept for Westcott, which was the West Coast Epcot was supposed to have, in their version of World Showcase, was supposed to have hotels in each one of the countries, so that, like, you could stay in the hotel that's themed to that country, and then, at night, if you wanted to, you could kind of walk around and go to a different country. Like, I mean, listen, I'm not saying that they're reviving Westcott. I don't think they are, but it is cool that they're looking to build hotels within the parks. I think that's a huge draw for people.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Like, it goes back to, like Damon said about, having a part, or having a hotel like right at Epcot. Yeah. Like, it's, if they can get the buy-in for that, that's just going to, Disneyland is already, it's tight on space, but it's such, like, it's a totally different thing from Disney World. Right? Yeah. But it would just, it would bring it to that next level. And it just further, they're trying to better establish the Disney bubble, literally. Like, you would, like you said, you'd end up in a position where it's like, well, you're in a hotel inside of the park. Like, there's no reason to leave, kind of thing, which I wonder how that works for park tickets then. Because if you buy, I guess it just gets rolled into your
I guess they'd have to figure that out.
Because you're just like, well, I'm just here anyway. What are you going to do? Right.
Exactly. I mean, but they're claiming that if they were to develop everything out, it would result in $244 million annually in additional tax revenue for Anaheim. including a lot more jobs and just more because listen, even if Disney's directly generating that much in tax revenue, there's all sorts of side businesses around the resorts, and this is Disney World too, that make money off the fact that Disneyland or Disney World is busy, right? Like and there are guests coming in. Like they also have this secondary impact on the local economy too. So it'll be interesting to see what actually comes of this, because we did see some like initial plans of what they want to do, and it looks really cool. So I mean, I hope it moves forward for the sake of Disneyland.
Yeah. I hope they get the buy-in they need, because otherwise they'll have to change gears again, and and we'll see what that looks like.
All right, let's wrap this up with this one last thing at Disneyland, and that is a Steamboat Willie Splash Pad. We got some concept art here for the Steamboat Willie Splash Pad that's going to be at the villas at Disneyland Hotel, and it looks like it's got some. It looks like the Steamboat Willie boat, right? Of course, like deconstructed, but it looks like it's a splash pad, right?
So it's sunk into the it's like the Steamboat Willie thing is sunk into the water, kind of. Yeah, but.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is a splash pad for kids, right? So it's not going to be like crazy cool, like, ridiculous, but there's misting fog and there's, jets that pop up and stuff like that. So go ahead, sorry.
The thing is that, back to like, pools and stuff and what makes, a good pool, like the splash pad is as much a part of it as anything. Like, and especially if it, like some of the parks or some of the hotels rather, the splash pads look very much like any generic splash pad that you can get. Like you know what I mean? Like
the little mushroom thing that like has the water that comes down. Yeah, it's like it's just generic. Yeah.
Yeah, this one definitely has some flair to it. It has, it very much, you're at a Disney hotel or at a Disney pool with this one. Yeah, so I think, I think
it's cool.
Yeah, we need to see more of that, because it seems like sometimes we talked about this previously. Some of the pools kind of they kind of do the bare minimum, I guess, to it. And this is definitely there was some thought put into it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely design. There's some misting effects. There's some little waterfalls. There's sprays. Like my daughter would go ham in this place. Like she'd lose it. She'd have a great time. She'd really like it. So
I would walk through it because it's shallow. You get your feet wet and cool, and you can just you don't have to go play in it, but you can walk through it and enjoy it.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap this thing up, Trevor. I feel like this was a really long episode. So let's
yeah. All right. As usual, if you guys want to reach us, you can always find us at welcomehomepodcast@gmail.com. We love getting your emails, so please keep sending them. If you want to follow us on social media, you can always find us on Facebook as Welcome Home Podcast. Same thing on YouTube. Instagrams is Welcome Home Pics if you want to follow us. Also for the Facebook group, it's Welcome Home Disney Waitlist. If you haven't joined it yet, please consider. So we've got lots of great people in there, lots of great discussion going on. So we'd love to see more people come in. I will say, back to the whole points thing. I know, the whole competition around the points was just that, it was a friendly
competition.
Going on,
just payments out of the competition now.
Yeah. But I will say that, I think, it did kind of spark, a lot more people feeling like they could start conversations and start threads, which, we've said that for a long time is, it isn't, we didn't want to be just us posting in the group. And I'm very happy that, there's lots of people talking in there. And I think, it just further helps make it, what we always say is it's a great community and a good place to talk about Disney stuff without all the stuff you see in other Disney groups, which is, drama. So, we're pretty drama free.
Points drama,
well, it's pretty drama free does not mean 100%,
and poor Dan getting an accidental ban.
Yeah,
I feel so bad for Dan.
So okay, yeah, so yeah. What one of our listeners, one of the Dans reached out to us, and because it was actually Facebook that did it. It wasn't anything to do with us. Facebook, he used a meme template that Facebook has decided is controversial. And so he now is in a mode where
it's on the naughty list.
Yeah, we had to keep approving his posts so he could get in there. But
poor Dan. Yeah, sorry, Dan.
Yeah, hopefully that gets sorted out. Yeah, that silly algorithm stuff.
Yep.
But yeah. So anyway, aside from all that, if you did want to help support the show, you can always go to store.welcomehomepodcast.com and check out our t-shirts and mugs and fanny packs and stuff, because why would you not want to wear our merch when you're going on your next Disney trip? So, consider picking something up there before you go. And alternately, if you would rather support us through something like Patreon, we do have patreon.com/welcomehomepod, which has a bunch of different levels of support. And anyone who supports us through Patreon gets access to the Discord server, which we talked about previously. It's another place where we talk with some of our listeners. So if that's of interest to you, please have a look. And last but not least, if you are listening on iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. It does help more people find the show. And if you're listening on iTunes and you want to leave us a review, we would love to see it. And, we may read it out on the show.
Like the one I'm about to read. We got a new one. All right. So this is from user, which this, by the way, this makes me think this person just created an Apple podcast account just to put this on here, because their username is DVC 25 plus years. So that's what their username is. And this is a must listen for Disney fans. Hello, I'm new to podcasts and stumbled upon yours a few weeks ago. Truly a new listener. Look at that. Really new listener. Welcome to the show. Right. I truly enjoy the helpful information, comical banter, and especially the opinions you all share with your listeners each week. While I'm a new listener, I'm an old DVC member since 1997, but we have not stayed up on all the post-pandemic changes. We have a big family reunion trip planned for Thanksgiving week, and listening to your new shows and catching up on old ones has eased my mind for planning this trip. Thank you all for the laughs. You make my Monday morning commute bearable, as well as the rest of the days. Well, thank you so much. That's such a nice review. I mean, welcome, first of all. That's amazing that you just started listening to us, and I'm glad you find us comical, because we find ourselves hilarious. So no, that's great. And I'm really excited for you to have your big family reunion for Thanksgiving. So, let us know if there's any other way we can help. Yeah.
If you're not in the group, the group is a great place to talk about these kinds of things.
Exactly. So thank you very much. So don't forget to subscribe to Welcome Home Podcast so you can be reminded every time we release a new episode. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, just about any podcast app out there. You can find us. Just a reminder to our listeners, Welcome Home Podcast is for entertainment only. We are not employed by the Walt Disney Company, and as such, all opinions we express in the show are our own. So please contact a DVC representative or Disney cast member for more information about anything we talked about today. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Monera Financial, for sponsoring this episode. And of course, World of DVC for continuing to be a supporter of this show. Please check them out. Join us next time for more Disney Parks discussion. Of course, more DVC talk. We hope to see you all real soon.
This is Skipper Albert Awol, the voice of the jungle, signing off from Welcome Home Podcast on the DVC.
Do a huddle when we hit a chair. How she can cuddle is no